people in sort of Biden camp were kind of getting annoyed at everyone being like, where is he? Where is he? They're like, well, what do you want him to do? And Cuomo just showed like what we want someone to do is to be on TV every day. That's what Trump is doing. Just be on TV every day. And this is like a moment Cuomo was made for, but he's the guy doing it. And like, there was that month where I was saying like every day a Democrat needs to be standing in an empty Walmart parking lot or an empty Target parking lot and saying like, Donald Trump said there would be tests here. There are no tests here. Was a thing to be doing every day. And now Cuomo, like, I haven't even seen polling on him, but I'm sure his numbers are way up. But it's like he also is in a position where he can't actually make it about Trump because he still needs the federal government to give him stuff.
Yes, exactly.
He can't actually use his platform to attack Trump.
Exactly. And you know, I mean, the opportunity for a Democrat to say, like, to do what you're talking about, and you could even do it. It's almost like a rival news show on some level. It's like, give me $100,000 and every month I'll get you a production where it's like, we've got somebody in that parking lot going back and, you know, here's a commentary, you know, and Biden could be a TV host, or he could be sitting next to a TV host who is saying, you know, like the idea of, here's a 5-minute report. The governor of California has been able to send ventilators, but that's because he on his own issued a stay-at-home order, 4 weeks ago. New York needs X, Y, and Z. We need these are the 5 things that we need Donald Trump to be doing now, and he's not doing any of them. Yeah. And look, this is like a Rumsfeld moment where it's like, you go to war with the army you have, or whatever it is. Right. And so maybe from the perspective of everybody around Biden, it's like, yeah, that would be great. But guess what we can't do? And they're like, so the next best strategy is we're not going to make any news. Like, everybody remember when Pete Buttigieg said, like, you're not going to have to pay attention to me as president for, right. We're giving everybody a taste of that. And I think, frankly, that's probably, based upon the limitations that Joe Biden has, the best strategy. Yeah. Because he is just basically going to say, like, when you vote for Biden, my name might as well be not Trump. Right. And that's it. Yeah. But still leaves a gaping hole. Like, the idea that Pelosi or Schumer, or maybe this is what Bernie will do. Yeah. Maybe Bernie will be this person, or somebody will, who doesn't feel like they, to a certain extent, like there does feel, and this is the dilemma that Cuomo has, like, all of our politicians are functioning as if they're, afraid of, they're access journalists. Yeah. 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 I mean, it should be published on newrepublic.com within minutes, but I just wrote a piece about the fact of the sort of leadership vacuum coming because, we've talked about Schumer and Pelosi's sort of limited vision and the way they approach dealing with the president. And now we've gone and made someone who has precisely their same background, their same milieu, their same history. We've just gone and made one of their cohort the standard bearer for the party itself. So it really doesn't give you a lot of hope that their approach to this will change over the next few months. No, it's like 3 people leading from behind, essentially. Like, they're all leading each other from behind. Right. Exactly. And the pressures are really just to recede and do nothing. And the problem is that, like, we need stuff done. And this may work in the short term, but the problem is that they are almost like genetically incapable, and this is the thing that I've come to learn, like about all of this, which is, I think, why people were so adamant about Bernie Sanders. I remember when Barack Obama, like when Reverend Wright came out, and I was like, this is the best thing from my perspective about Barack Obama. Yeah. Like, because then I could actually believe, like, oh, this guy is a secret sort of like, maybe not a radical, but he's got some, like, he's radical friendly.
Yeah, he's been exposed to those ideas.
He's been exposed to those ideas, and maybe when he gets in office, like I remember saying in 2008, and this is, there was no policy difference as far as I could tell between Clinton and Obama at that time. And in fact, I think Clinton was the left of Obama on like the healthcare. She was pro mandate, he was against it. He was a little bit iffy on Social Security, but I was like, if I'd been senator for 2 years and I'd been state senator, this is what I would do. I would just sort of like, I would put on that, that sheep's clothing essentially. And, the Reverend Wright thing, I was like, hey, he could be for real.
Yeah.
And, somewhere around like the summer of 2009, after he was elected, I was like, I believe him now. I don't think he heard a single word that Reverend Wright said.
Well, that was what, this is a lesson that seems to have been intentionally memory hold. But Obama, I mean, he was the insurgent change candidate, and it wasn't about policy. It was that he rejected the Washington consensus, like rhetorically. He wrote in his book, he rejected Clintonian triangulation. So like, even if he was telling people my policies are, I'd fit right in as a moderate Republican in the Reagan era or whatever, like he was still saying, like, I reject the consensus that got us here. And obviously we have now in a moment where that is not an offer from anyone in the Democratic Party, saying like, there's no one who's the throw the bums out. There's no throw the bums out candidate.
No, well, I mean, they all are basically just like, insofar as that it's Donald Trump. But the problem is that I don't think this is a, short term, this can work maybe, but I don't think this is going to be followed up by, now we're really getting down to business. I think it's just going to be like, this is less a tactic and more just a sort of a disposition. And it just sort of, they're choosing this as a tactic because it's also dispositionally where they're comfortable. Yeah. And they're going to remain like this. And, like, for instance, when we talk about phase 4, they don't seem, and it's early yet, I guess, in this process, relatively speaking, but after what we saw in Wisconsin this week, with what the Republican lawmakers are willing to do, what the state Supreme Court was willing to do, and what the federal Supreme Court was willing to do, it seems unconscionable to me that this would not be demand number one. Mm-hmm. You guys are in control of the government. You have the executive branch and the Senate. We're in the House. We can't even convene. Mm-hmm. The only thing we're telling you is you better put these voting protections on, vote by mail, whatever it is. And then it seems to me the other thing that they should have are economic stabilizers that are automatic. So we don't rely on Republicans if, Biden wins and we don't have the Senate to do anything in 2021. And they should be demanding this right now. Chuck Schumer should be saying no conversation other than this. And I will say they've been good in terms of like shutting down the SBA expansion, because what McConnell wants to do is do it all piecemeal.
Right.
So that they can't leverage stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what's your sense of how that's resonating? Like I know that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are like, we're really putting it all on the line by not doing this SBA thing. But I mean, I read the news professionally every day, and that's story number like 43.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. Like they are just constitutionally not fit for a moment that requires like creative thinking and like new approaches to problems. That was what struck me about phase 4, was that Pelosi couldn't even seem to articulate what she wanted to accomplish with it, and it was like she kind of tossed out the salt tax like repeal, which was just like the craziest thing I've heard from a Democrat so far.
That's can you just go through what that is so the people can understand how completely demented this is? Like, it's completely demented.
Yeah,
that this would come up.
Right. So the state and local tax, you used to be able to write it off on your federal taxes, what you paid in state and local taxes. And then the big Republican tax bill got rid of that, I think mainly just to annoy rich blue states. Yeah, because the people who benefit the most from the state and local tax deduction were wealthy homeowners in largely urban Democrat voting areas. In other words, like the constituents of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Even though it's the salt tax repeal, it's become a Democratic priority for some Democrats to get the salt tax reduction back, not because it's a particularly progressive policy in any way, but just because it was just as constituent service, basically. It was a thing that was helping my constituents. But the idea of that having any priority whatsoever in a disaster response economic aid bill, it's that they have a single bag of policy responses that they can draw from, and they can't and nothing new can enter the bag, and they can't think of something new.
And just to be fair, those salt deductions, they increase pressure on the governors of these states theoretically,
right,
to lower property taxes, essentially,
right,
and local taxes. But that's a political thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's been no, I'm not convinced of that, frankly. Literally, I think 40% of the benefits go to people who are making over $1 million. And the remainder, 2/3 of the remainder go to people who are making over $200,000.
Yeah.
And so I am very, very skeptical as to that dynamic. I would believe it at the margins, but particularly in a situation like this, that is not you do not expend your political capital on that.
No, right. At this moment. Right. And then she sort of dropped it since then, but it is, I still get the sense that she doesn't actually know, it's they're just not good at figuring out that the things they're supposed to be doing are addressing the actual problems happening, currently happening.
And the other thing that I find that's sort of fascinating about this too is that I am very open to the idea that they are willfully incompetent in certain areas because it favors some of their corporate interests that they don't want to expose. They don't want to
be open about. Yeah.
Yes, they don't want to be open about. And so if I'm bumbling, I'm not. It's not that I'm letting the bad guy get away. It's just I'm a really bumbling cop.
Yeah.
And I drop my gun and I'm I get loose.
Yeah.
But this isn't even that.
Yeah.
They're not even doing that well. In terms of that.
You can see how impossible it is for them to shake their instincts here when I was never clear on why. So, all right, I've seen this debate online because there's been discussion about how Nordic countries are doing direct paycheck subsidies to keep people on payrolls, and Josh Hawley, regardless of whether you think he's sincere
Republican,
Republican Josh Hawley, regardless of whether you think he's sincere or not, proposed something similar.
80%. He wants to pay companies directly. Here's 80% of your payroll. We're giving it to you.
Yeah.
And all you need to do is pay your workers 20% to stay at home until this is over.
Right. And that's the policy that seems designed to say, here is the immediate problem. What would fix this problem? What can the government do now that would fix this problem? And I saw someone saying yeah, but it's actually his policy. When you look at the numbers, it's actually less generous than the unemployment Schumer got because the Schumer's unemployment has an extra $600. But I'm the Schumer, the unemployment that was passed, first of all, requires that you have already been laid off. You've already been let go. Your job is already gone. And they attached a time limit to it so that even when it needs to be renewed, it will be a political football again. And it just the Democrats, their argument is we did the most progressive version of things we have done before instead of we are actually trying to do something new.
Yes. And I would say just in the latter part of what you say is really the two things that I think, one of the two things. One, I think they got to deal with voting. And two, they have to make everything automatic.
Yeah.
Because when they say 3 or 4 months in, they should peg it. They should peg it to a number that is indicative of the economy. So if unemployment is at, and now where I think unemployment, I don't know, it's north of 10% at this point. I mean, it's unclear, where we're going to land. Things are moving so quickly. But if there are more than, 12 million people out of work, then this amount of money and just do a sliding scale.
Yeah.
And then basically say, and then from a political standpoint, your talking point is that Mitch McConnell does not care about giving support when we're living with 9%